All right. Welcome to the Revello podcast. I am your host, Max, and today we have a special treat for you guys, and we have a special guest. So go ahead and briefly introduce yourself, Ms. Katy Goeltz.
Hello, like Max said, I am Katy Goeltz. I am an online women's fat loss coach. I own Pretty Powerhouse Coaching Collective, which is recently rebranded, and I basically help women heal from their toxic relationship with food and their body. So we have some really good topics today for you guys, kind of pertaining to that. But a little bit about me and kind of like background in my education is I went to school. I graduated with a BS in health promotion and wellness. And then I wasn't really sure after college what I wanted to do with that. And I kind of ended up doing nothing with that because you don't really need a degree like that to be a personal trainer. But I got my personal training certification, started in-person personal training at an Anytime Fitness, my local Anytime Fitness, and quickly realized that if I wanted to grow, I was really confined to the amount of people that were brought into that gym. And I also realized that I got sick of my clients coming to me and wondering why they weren't losing weight because I only saw them 2 to maybe 4 times in their week for a 1 hour period. And I had no idea what the rest of their life looked like. I didn't know what their nutrition looked like. I didn't know what their water intake, their sleep, their stress management, relationships. I didn't know anything about their outside life. So I could not tell them why they weren't losing weight and reaching their goals. And I hated that. So then online coaching kind of came into my life and I quit my full-time job, started discovering how to build an online business, and the rest is history. Here I am. I'm trying to hop on, as a guest on people's podcasts because I just love collaboration. I love learning more from other coaches. And so that's why I'm here with Max today. So we're going to have some really good topics for you guys.
Oh yes, and today, and just so you guys are aware, full transparency, totally unscripted. We even
Oh,
know
yeah.
I don't even know where the hell this thing's even gonna go. We had several technical difficulties. Neither of us are very tech savvy. So, in the meantime, as you guys are watching me do whatever I'm doing right now, I had a sudden brilliant idea to grab one of my mics, and then
There you
eventually
go.
I turned this on. There we go. Now we're official.
Yes. Yes. We sound
Now my
official.
mic won't sound like shit. Anyway, so you're a woman's fat loss coach.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, Katy and I are in the same mention space with the best person ever, Nick Comedina.
Oh, I
If
love
he ever
Nick.
watches this, shout out you. You're like the greatest person ever.
Nick has changed my life, you guys. Changed my life
So much
for the
joy. I can feel
better.
my I cried talking to this guy.
Same.
And then, so yeah, how did you? So you're seeing your clients for like an hour
Hmm.
each day, right? And it was
Yes.
anytime.
Yes.
What did that current? What was the? Let me frame it this way. What was the most common problem you saw with these clients, with your in-person clients?
With the in-person clients, I think the biggest issue is just that I did not have the ability. I mean, it was kind of like a system issue, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't necessarily a client issue, it was a system issue that when you are an in-person trainer, now there are some in-person trainers at more like small bodybuilding style gyms who also do the off-site like nutrition planning and work on that kind of stuff. But at a commercial gym like Anytime Fitness, you just see those clients for the 1 hour period. And there's really no like further education. And unless you seek out specific like nutrition and health and fitness education, like schools don't really provide that unless you major in it. And so I think the biggest problem that I saw was just like a lack of knowledge of what these people thought they needed to do. And the reason why I say it's a system issue is because it's not their fault that they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. It's the system. It's not only the school system, but also the way that some in-person training is set up. And do I think it's wonderful that they were in there getting movement? Yes, some of them 4 to 5 times a week, which is amazing. But if your nutrition is not dialed in, if your sleep is shitty, if you're constantly stressed, the fact is you're not going to see those results. And so I think it was just an understanding of like them thinking, well, I'm coming into the gym, so I think I'm doing everything right. And they just don't know what they don't know. So I think that that is the biggest struggle that I saw.
And how many, you have in-person clients, you have your online clients, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what would you say in general has been like, what do they come to you with what their biggest problems are? Is it fat loss? Is it hormones? Is it just bad relationship with food? Like they ate themselves to 200 pounds or whatever it is.
Mhm.
They have a shitty breakup.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think all of that honestly is like a byproduct of what their biggest struggle is, and that is being able to create um and maintain and actually follow through with healthy habit building. So because they have no idea how to build healthy habits and actually follow through with them, that is all of the things that you mentioned is kind of a byproduct of not being able to do that and not knowing where to start, starting too big and feeling very defeated because they're starting too big with their habits and their goals and their expectations of themselves, that they quickly fail because they just put too much on themselves at once instead of slowly building up those healthy habits. So as a result, they are overweight. Their hormones are all over the place. Their relationships are shitty. They're constantly feeling fatigued, tired, moody throughout their day. So those are all byproducts, I believe. I'm very much into um, like behavior change, like the behavior change side of it. I did learn a lot of that in school, and I've also continued my education with that through podcasts, books. I love James Clear. If you've ever read like Atomic Habits, like love that book. Love my favorite podcaster is Rob Dial. He has the shoot, what's his podcast name? I just said it was my favorite podcaster and I don't even know the name of it. So that sounds really bad. But
You'll
he
never
is
see this,
really,
don't worry.
you know who he is?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, he's just a big motivation guy. His podcast episodes are really short. But anyways, if you start just like listening to those podcasts, reading those books or listening to the audiobooks, like I'm just a huge believer that if you don't have the correct method of behavior change, you know, like you're never gonna do it. And then all of those issues are going to be a byproduct of you not understanding and being able to follow through with effective behavior change.
Gotcha. Love that. Now, I know you mentioned previously that you had your own separate issues before you
Mhm.
got into online. You're up and from, guy to guy, you had your own little deal. How'd you take that and go into women's fat loss?
Yeah,
You
that's a
can't
really good.
talk about food.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So just a little bit of a background of like my struggles before I actually started educating myself in like health, fitness, wellness. In high school, I struggled really badly with an eating disorder. I would say my eating disorder probably started arising as an issue when I was probably 10 years old. I
Wow.
really, yeah, so pretty young age. I mean, I know people who even had body image issues and stuff starting earlier than that, who are women. But I just started noticing, like, I was in gymnastics at the time. I just started noticing, like, how my body looked in my leotard compared to my teammates. And I did come from a family where our genetics are just a little bit overweight. And even the people who were healthy and took care of themselves in my family were slightly overweight. And then obviously you could tell the difference between the people who really didn't take care of themselves. And my grandpa was extremely overweight, had a lot of heart attacks and strokes because of it. And so I mean, we all know that genetics do play a role and then you can improve it, but if you don't, then you're just SOL. But so my body image issues started when I was probably about 10 years old doing gymnastics. It wasn't until middle school, early high school that I really started negative, like the way that my body image was affecting like my eating and the way I was taking care of myself was really affecting my health. I mean, I lost my period for a long time. My hair was falling out in the shower more than just your natural, like when you brush it through and you lose some strands. Like I had clumps of hair, that I, stick on the wall and then throw away after my shower. Like it was really bad. But my stepmom was the one who like approached me and took me aside and was like, I really care about you. And like, you have an eating disorder. Like you need to get help. Like this, you're slowly killing yourself. I mean, that's essentially what when you have anorexia nervosa, like that's what you're doing. You're slowly killing yourself by depriving yourself of food. So, um, I was killing myself by doing strength and conditioning like 4 hours plus a day. I would wake up, have half a cup of iced black coffee, go for like a 2-hour run, come home, eat like one Yoplait Light 90
Oh
calorie
my goodness.
yogurt.
No.
Yeah, I would not eat anything over 100 calories because 100 calories, that triple digits scared me. So like that started at a really, really young age. And I would follow, like, if you're someone that's about my age, that the earlier days of Instagram, like the
Yeah.
Thinspiration, the like moment on your lips, forever on your hips type of thing. Like I followed all those accounts that just fueled like my body image issues. So really then fast forward when I started getting into relationships, when I started, being interested in having attention from males, it was really unhealthy because I felt so lowly about myself and about my body, and I just wanted to be validated. So I looked for that externally my whole life. It wasn't until 2021 that I really stopped seeking that external validation and like finding that within myself. And I really learned that no, like you can't expect and put your happiness on other people because I always seek that out. And in 2021, I was 5 years into a relationship. So it took me that long to realize like, okay, like there's even gonna be times where like he can't make me fully happy because he has to go in on his work and whatever. And it's my responsibility then to find my own happiness. But I started hopping from guy to guy. I started, sleeping with people because I felt poorly about myself. And I thought that that's the kind of attention that I wanted. And I was just seeking those people out for the wrong reasons. And it led me down a really bad path. I mean, there was a point in time, like my freshman year of college, I think it was, I was also heavily drinking. Man, I was like heavily drinking, almost blacking out 4 nights a week. Don't know how I did it. Don't know how I went to classes at 8 a.m. still.
When you're young, you can do that.
Yes, yeah, your body bounces back a lot better, but it still was not healthy. And I did things that were embarrassing that I didn't even remember doing that my roommate would tell me about. I slept with 3 guys in one friend group. I really tore up our friend group. Like I was not down a healthy path. And a lot of this did stem back from the way that I viewed myself. I just needed people to validate me. And it took me a while. It took me until I really started getting into these like mentorship programs and like working on my personal development, finding happiness within myself and learning to grow as a person. It took me until that point to realize like I am responsible for my own happiness, not men. I grew up with 2 dads, a dad and a stepdad. And
Appreciate for
one
that clarification.
what?
I appreciate for that clarification.
Yes, my dads are not gay, but I have 2 dads because one of them, my dad obviously has been with me since I was born, but my stepdad came into my life when I was like 8 years old. So majority of my life now. And one of them, my dad, praised me, put me on a pedestal. I could do no wrong. I was perfect in school, perfect in cheerleading and sports and gymnastics, whatever. My stepdad, on the other hand, very, very hard to please. Everything I did was that's not the way, like you're loading the dishwasher wrong. Oh my gosh, you don't know how to change your oil. Like things where I'm like, well, if you don't teach me how to do them, like I don't know how to do them. So it's like I was seeking validation because one parent in my life, one male figure in my life praised me and I could do no wrong. So that perfectionism, that's where that grew in me. And I love my dad and stepdad. Like they are awesome, but all of our parents have something that makes us grow up and in a little bit of a have issues or trauma, early childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So one of them put me on a pedestal. One of them was really, really hard to get validation from. And I think that that's why I just felt like I needed that external validation. And then also paired with like my own body image issues to like really led me down a wrong path. So I've really in the past, 2024. So since I would say that was the end of 2021 where I had that like breakthrough. So I would say like 2022 until now is like the biggest personal growth years that I've ever had in my entire life combined. So, but yeah,
Wow,
that's kind of my story about that.
that's nuts. That's wild.
Yeah. Now I'm curious though, is like that was obviously the women's side of things. And I know that it's becoming more of a accepted topic to talk about, like males having mental health issues, body image issues. I know that my husband has struggled with body image issues. He's very tall and lanky, so he's always struggled with like building muscle and seeing himself as, he always looks in the mirror and sees himself as like too small when he's trying to like build muscle. So I'm just curious how that translates and how that differs. Like, what can you relate to and what's different about like the male perspective on body image issues and then also relationships?
So from what I've seen with the male body issues, it's usually they get shamed a lot. You see all this red pill stuff about get be 6 feet tall, you make 6 figures, you have to have washboard abs, you have to get emotionally intelligent, to be this, that, and the other. Like this impossible list, this impossible checklist for you to check off every single box. And it was like, okay, maybe like 70% of this list is valid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for men, I'll use myself as an example. I was like your husband all through high school. I'm 5'11". I run 6 foot. I don't tell you. But
She's 6'2", so you guys are in that same like
yeah.
realm.
So, but I was also I was 145 all through high school because I was also running track. So I didn't obviously at that point in my life I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to the gym because I enjoyed it. My mom was a personal trainer, so I was
Oh,
always
wow.
around like fitness
Mm-hmm.
in one way, shape, or form. I was always playing sports. My weight, and I did at that point, I was very low confidence level
Mm-hmm.
because it was like you're saying I had a lot of shit back in my childhood. And for those of you who don't know, roughly that time in my life, I was like steeped into my porn addiction. And it kind of like furthered that low self-esteem, low like sense of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think a lot of guys struggle with this. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it's usually like overweight men,
Yeah.
men who think they have self-confidence, but it's really like you're coping because you're looking for, like I said, probably that external validation and traumas that you
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to handle quite yet.
Or like
And
self-deprecating jokes to like
yeah,
act like they have
that was
confidence.
a big
Yeah.
thing for me. Because that
Mm-hmm.
was like self-deprecation was like my way of like, oh, he's not afraid to put himself down.
Mm-hmm.
When honestly, and like thank God we have Nick for this. When honestly, self-deprecating humor is actually the reverse of that because
Yeah.
people don't know this, but your subconscious doesn't understand between joking and reality. Your self-conscious it hears self-deprecating humor. It hears I'm fat, I'm a loser. It hears I'm stupid,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually your subconscious translates that into you're stupid, you're a loser, you're fat, and then start eating your feelings. And the next thing you know, 6 months later, we're 200 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
And I think, and it doesn't help either that we're constantly that most of the people that we see in our culture and our society, they're fit men with, we see Chris Hemsworth, we see Chris Evans,
Yeah.
we see these Hollywood stars that take their shirts off like a superhero movie, and it
Mm-hmm.
sets like, and women are always just like women like fawn over this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we also have, book talk to compete with all the
Mhm.
like
Oh, yeah. Book talk. I'm not
yeah,
huge into TikTok, but I do know what book talk is.
yeah. And then so guys have a
Mhm.
lot of that to deal with. And
Yeah.
and I would tell guys this: you should be reading book talk. There's a reason why it drives women crazy to read those things in the
Mhm.
books because
Mhm.
subconsciously it's a primal thing subconsciously
Mhm.
that women want to be treated this way behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But when you're in public, they want to be treated like you're a queen. Because I think when you have women behind closed doors like this, it allows them, I guess, to unlock something that's super feminine.
Mhm.
like you're completely surrendering yourself to your partner,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows you to like just fully just let go, and then you can unlock like you can truly just unlock the female brain
Mm-hmm.
when you just have her in her absolute feminine energy.
Yeah.
That's where I want to go with that.
Yeah. And that actually sparked like a really good thought in my head that I've actually never really spoke about, but I just always think about this when I see things on social media, is that women, like there's this huge talk now these days about like embracing your masculine and your feminine, right? And there's also this big drive in the modern day world and on social media of like, I'm an independent woman, I don't need no man. But I'm a strong believer that like the base level of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is safety. And one of the ways that to feel safe is to feel taken care of. Like, oh, my guy's got me. Like, he's taking care of me. And I'm not saying that like that means a bunch of materialistic things, but like you just want to feel taken care of. And so I see a lot of women out there, and I don't know if it's just like this specific corner of social media that I see these people on. Like, I don't know if this is the overall view or thought process, or if it's just these select individuals, but I'll see them talk about how like, they don't need someone to take care of them. They're independent. Like they don't want to rely on a man. And it's like, you can be both. You can be an independent woman. You can support yourself financially. You can be okay on your own, taking yourself on dates, like doing that. But you can also want to feel that like safety and, um, like just being
Connection.
taken care of by
Yeah.
your partner. Yeah. Like you just want to, like, that's a way of feeling safe, is just feeling taken care of. They got your back. And it's just like you and them together in life. And I don't know. I'm like, I told you before our podcast is, when you wanted to talk about relationships, I'm like, I'm absolutely like good with that. Like I do have a lot to say about relationships. Now, when it comes to like the dating world right now, not really up to date on that. I've been with my husband for like, we started dating like 7.5 years ago. So I'm very much so like out of the modern dating world.
You're not
But
missing much.
yeah, I've heard that it's a bit of a struggle these days. I heard it has been. So I think that's something too that maybe a little, or like you can speak a little bit more on from
Yeah.
experience than I could. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll touch on that briefly. So, from what I've seen in the dating world, I have since left. Thank God for Kelly Poole. If she sees this too, I put that girl through a ringer sometimes, and she like pulls me right off the ledge. Like, you're not dating anybody. You told me you weren't going to.
I will say
Yeah.
one thing about Kelly Poole is that whenever I haven't really talked to her face to face a lot because all my calls have been
Oh,
with Nick.
she's a stud. I talked to her at the live event, and she's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited. But every time Nick is doing a group call, she says the exact, like I'm sitting there trying to think of how to type out what I want to say, and then I'll see her thing pop up and I'm like, that's exactly what I was trying to say. I just could not find the words. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know how she does it, but yeah, she's
she's
awesome.
Kelly.
Yeah, she's Kelly. That's how she
She's
does
Kelly.
it.
Nah, and and like I was saying, and thank God I have Kelly for this.
Mhm.
But from how I want to word this, from my dating experience, I was always dating. I always attracted. Nick always, let me frame it this way. Nick always says people, especially your partner, is like the perfect mirror for you to look at because they're a reflection of you. If you have any insecurities about yourself, they're going to reflect that right back to you. Like, oh shit, I hate that.
Mhm.
So for me, once I came to the realization of I'm attracting emotionally unavailable women, because I'm emotionally unavailable because I was dealing with my own insecurities at one point. I had a lot of insecurity about my girl going out to hang out with guys or having guy friends. Like, God forbid she had a guy friend. I was like, no, I'm out.
Mm.
And this guy, that was reflecting back to my time at Florida State when I had a lot of, and even my military time, I had a lot of problem issues with my girl having guy friends. And it didn't really register to me until like 2 years after I graduated from Florida State.
Mhm.
Like more recently, then really registered. Like, oh, that's why. And it also didn't necessarily get reflected to me until that lab event in Texas. And I was just like, okay, now, and it was because Nick was like, okay, I was celibate for like 6 months to a year. All the other homies raised their hand, like, okay, I'm celibate. I'm celibate. And then I was like, and then I saw Spencer go and make his down. Like, oh, I go fuck it, I'm celibate too. So, so once that's occurred,
Mhm.
and then so I've completely, since I removed the objective to have sex with every girl I've talked to, I no longer have a reason to talk to them.
Mhm.
No longer. Like if I can't hold just a friendly conversation, I don't talk to any girls. And Kelly, like, and again, I'm really gonna like give Kelly like kudos for this because she messaged me because I messaged her about some girl that had DM'd me for the second time. Whatever. And she was like, well, I'm not the right, I might not be the right person to give you, help you with your relationship. So like, no, you're actually the perfect person. If you tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. You tell
Mhm.
me that, okay, no, you're not dating anyone. You told me you weren't going to because you want to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into relationships because for me, I believe that if you haven't really healed yourself and worked on you and done the necessary work, then you don't need to be dating. And
Mhm.
that's something I've had to learn the hard way. Like I've had two women put me in the therapy twice. And one more recent one was from like 3 years ago, or no, sorry, 2 years ago. She had a 1-year-old, almost 1-year-old daughter at the time. And that was like a realization realization that like you could have this if you were ready, but you're not ready. So I'm gonna take it away from you and it's gonna suck, it's gonna hurt.
Mhm.
And so I think I think in this whole thing of I don't need a man, I can get my own money. Sure, go ahead. I'm not telling you can't do that,
Yeah.
but I think you need to think about what is the story you're telling yourself like makes you think you don't need a man.
Yeah.
Not like that. What makes you think you don't need one? What makes you think you don't want one? Because
Yeah.
obviously you had something from your childhood that told you can't rely on men to be there for you.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think it's just a giant. For me personally, I think it's a code
Yeah. Like
because
a
you're
way, like projecting something, like a putting
yeah,
on a
and
front, essentially.
and you're just using it as an excuse to just you know
Mhm.
live your life forever single. And there's no problem to do that. That means your life, do what you want. But I think at the end of the day, if you need to come to terms with what the real issue is,
Mhm.
and so let's go in this direction. Here, I want this kind of segues into life. Because you said you have a lot to say with relationships.
About what? Sorry, say that.
Speak on that. You said you had a lot to say about relationships. Speak on that.
Yeah. So, okay. So I don't even know where to start with this. Just for a little bit of background, at the university I went to UW Stevens Point. You probably don't know it. You probably only know UW Madison Badgers, the big UW
Oh
school. Yeah.
yeah.
But it's basically, there are like 20 something schools in the UW system. So it's just like a D3 in the same system. But that's where I went to school. And I worked for the Center for Prevention on campus. So we worked with alcohol and other drug abuse. So I was that person when you got in trouble drinking in the dorms. I did the presentation class that you had to go to learn about the drinking. Yeah.
Love
Coming from
that.
the person who blacked out like 4 nights a week her freshman year, fast forward to my junior and senior year, and I did like the opposite. I had to take that class and then I ended up teaching it at the end of my schooling. But
Love that.
we worked with alcohol and other drug abuse and then also interpersonal violence on campus. So we worked with like PACE, who is I forget what the acronym stands for, but it works with like
Physical
sexual assault.
abuse.
Yeah, physical abuse, something. And then we also worked with like another program for like sexual assault and stuff like that. But I did a lot of presentations on interpersonal violence in relationships. And I've also listened to a lot of podcasts of people just talking, and it's honestly incredible. Like the things that we don't see as like verbal and emotional abuse in relationships, but actually are. Like this is a very I don't want to I'm not like minimizing this, because if this happens in someone's life and like it really affects them, like that's you and that's okay if it's a big in your life. But I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about gaslighting, because I feel like gaslighting has become this huge like buzzword term. Everything is gaslighting these days. And the podcast gave some examples and it really like opened my eyes. But like one example that they talked about of gaslighting is like, let's say me and my husband were driving the car. He was driving, right? He works in like into Minneapolis, because we live in Hudson, Wisconsin. So it's like right on the border of Minnesota. So we're like 30 minutes away from like Minneapolis, St. Paul. So he works in Minneapolis. So he has to drive across the border through a couple like suburb towns. And then he has to drive through St. Paul and into Minneapolis, because St. Paul's first and then Minneapolis is further. So he's very much of a city driver now. And our hometown and the towns around it in Wisconsin are very country. Like I'm a country girl. I don't like country music, but I like living in the country. And I'm not a city person. I hate the driving. I hate the amount of people. Like I'm just not interested. But he's become such a city driver, having to drive through. And so when I drive with him now, he really scares me when he drives. Not that he's a bad driver, but because he has to be more aggressive and more on the defense being a city driver, it's just different. So he'll come closer to the car than I would in front of him to stop and whatever. And it scares me sometimes. So sometimes I like grab the side of the car and I kind of like gasp, or I say like, oh my God, or whatever. And he says like, that wasn't even scary. Like,
Oh my goodness.
that wasn't even scary. Like, we're fine. Like, don't you trust my driving or whatever? And that was the exact example that these people used on the podcast for gaslighting. So, I shouldn't say me, but if you know me, I immediately went to my husband and was like, do you know that you've been gaslighting me this whole time? Just jokingly, because I know he's not like purposely doing it. And he is not like nowhere near like emotionally or verbally abusive at all. But I was so like excited to walk up to him that night and be like, you've been gaslighting me. Apologize. You owe me.
I told you were doing it.
I told you this was scary for me. You're trying to tell me my reality is not what it is. But anyway, so I think that it's important to just really understand I think a lot of people, because they're so eager to find like this connection, and this is just my own personal view and like thought of everything that I've seen and heard, is I think people are so eager for connection these days. They're so eager. Like you said, the dating pool, I'm not missing out on much. You said that it's kind of tough, hard to navigate, sucks sometimes. I've heard it from one of my friends too. She's really struggling to find like her person too. But I think we're so eager for connection that we're willing to like
Settle.
To settle, to accept somebody that does not treat us properly, or just like the amount of ways that people are like emotionally and verbally abusive, and like people will just be willing to settle for it and say like, oh, that's just them, and just like make excuses, make passes for them, is honestly insane. And I feel so like sad when I see this, because that's just not a way to live life. Like there's someone in my life, and I'm not going to say how they're related to me, how they're a part of my life, because I don't want to, call out their relationship. But there's someone that's really close to me that's a very good example of this, where their significant other, he puts her down all the time, makes her feel inferior, makes her feel like unseen, makes her feel like her truth isn't the truth. And it's really sad to see, because this person talks so highly of the person that's hurting them the most. And I don't even think they realize it. And it's just like, I think the reason why it's so heightened these days too, is because we are so distracted by social media and scrolling on our phones, technology, and technology can be wonderful. I mean, obviously, you and I have businesses on technology. So there are so many great things about it, so many advanced things about it, and then also so many ways that it can hurt us, because it's so easy to just not sit with our thoughts, not sit with learning more about ourselves, working on ourselves, because we can so easily at our fingertips have access to everything in the world that distracts us. Gaming apps, music, podcast, Netflix on our phone, like literally social media, TikTok scrolling. Like we distract ourselves so much that we are distracting ourselves from actually learning and growing and understanding that we have the ability to learn to work on ourselves and love ourselves, that we're willing to put ourselves in these relationships because we don't know any better. We don't know what we deserve. And I think like when you're actively like us who are seeking out personal development and really working on just being and evolving into the best version of ourselves, like that's very rare. Like I applaud anyone who's doing that because it's very rare that people actually have the self-awareness to be like, I'm gonna do something about it. So not only the self-awareness of something needs to change, but the drive to actually follow through and like execute with learning and growing and building ourselves. So that's also why I think there's been a big deterioration in, I mean, think about like the divorce rate, right? Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
no fighting for anything anymore. It's like the smallest inconvenient. And maybe that comes back to entitlement. This is me just thinking out loud, but maybe that comes back to entitlement of like, oh, this is the smallest inconvenience for me. Like this relationship isn't going to work. And it's like, there's no fighting for like your integrity in your relationship anymore. Like the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. And you're not always going to like your partner, but love is not just a feeling. It's an action. Like you have to actively decide to love that person. You have to actively decide that when you see someone cute walk by that's not your partner and they give you like they look you up and down, you have to decide like the grass is not greener over there. It's greener like where I water it. And even if I'm not happy in my relationship, like that is my decision and my responsibility to work on it. I don't
I
know.
mean,
That was a lot of information.
yeah. I mean, there's a great quote in the Bible that says, "Love is patient, love is kind, love is not, uh,
Like boastful and
love
yeah,
is not
there's
boastful." I
yeah.
mean, it's Corinthians, Book of Corinthians, chapter 13. I'm
Verse
not.
one or something. Yeah, I'm not an
Listen,
expert
before
on
y'all
that
kill
either.
me, before y'all crush me in the comments, I'm not like a Christian minister. I'm not like well versed in Bible
We don't have the
anything.
Bible memorized, let's just say.
Yeah, we don't have. That doesn't make us either of us bad Christians. We just don't memorize it. It's not in our purview to memorize it.
Yeah,
But you mentioned a lot, and
I did. I'm a
I think
talker.
it's. I think something to consider that this person in your family. I think that might be what her view of love is.
Mm-hmm.
Her view of what love actually is getting put down, making her feel less than, not seen.
Mm-hmm.
That might be what her version of love is.
Yeah.
Because we all have different ways that love is shown to us, as Nick is so prone to say, as Nick has been so prone to say. So it looks to us from the outside looking in, it looks like, oh, that's why is she accepting that shit? That's fucked up. That's abuse.
Yeah.
That looks so abusive.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you hit on a lot. So,
Sorry.
but yeah, that was like kind of the one that kind of really stuck out, and it
Yeah.
really, and then the whole gaslighting thing. Listen, if you're gaslighting your partner, unless it's in like the friendly confines of like, you told me you were driving carefully or whatever, you told me to trust your driving. I mean, I think kind of even then, it kind of sets the press, it kind of plants the seeds towards some form of unhealthy relationship. You should never like joke to your partner like things that should be kind of taken kind of seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like joking about divorce
Yeah.
should never like be a
Mm-mm.
thing.
No.
It's like you're planting seeds of doubt in your partner. You should be able to like
Yeah.
trust them. And I think you hit on something else. I wanted to touch on it. I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah. Um Fuck, I lost it. Anyway.
I
So
talked
yeah,
about a lot though.
you did. You did. My brain was trying to go like cover everything. And so you mentioned, okay, I think I don't know. Now I know where I want to go.
Okay.
So how did you and your husband meet? Like, how did that whole thing go down 8 years, 7.5 years ago? When
You're
you're
gonna
like, when you were going through your stuff.
you're gonna laugh.
Go for it.
We were stunt partners on our cheer team.
You're a stunt partner?
Yeah,
Let's
he was my base.
go.
He was my base and I was his flyer.
Let's go.
Yeah, so
I love that.
he was a male
He thought
cheerleader.
you thought he was gay. So from
No, I
you.
didn't. And I will have to say, like, there has been many guys on our team. There's only been one man on our team who's gay. Well, okay, just kidding. Two, but that was in the 4 years that I
Are
cheered
you
there.
serious?
Everybody else was straight. Yeah, it's a legit sport. So,
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that
no,
they
I know,
look
I know.
kind of dicey. Like,
Yeah. Yes. I think that is the stereotype of male cheerleaders. And that is a lot of shit he got.
literally.
So he actually got into cheerleading because his sister, who is now gone, but his sister, like, it was like a bring a guy to cheer day because they were trying to recruit more guys for the co-ed cheer team. And so his mom forced him to go there for his sister. And so obviously he went into it as a high school male football player, like, F this, like, I'm not a cheerleader, cheerleading's stupid. And he
Gay as
ended up
hell, mom.
he ended up really loving it because and this is something that I learned from my college cheer coach is, like, when you tell guys that you don't think they can do something, they're
Oh,
like,
oh
fucking
yeah.
bet, I will prove you wrong. So if you show them a skill and you say, yeah, I doubt you can even do that, they're like, they hike up their shorts so they can squat down and, throw the girl up in the air. But yeah, anyways, we met on the college cheer team. When we met though, so he is a year older than me in school. So he was a sophomore going into his junior year, and I was a freshman going into my sophomore year because I did not cheer my freshman year of college. I didn't do any sports. I just did school and killed myself in the cardio machine. But anyways,
Moving
yeah,
on.
so when we met, I was dating my high school boyfriend and he was dating another girl. So like I just knew of him. Like I didn't really talk to him. And then it was about to be summer because that was for tryouts in the spring. So then summer goes and then 2 days come around. I'm still dating my high school boyfriend. He's no longer with his previous girlfriend. Halloween comes around. Me and my boyfriend break up. And then in like December, I actually was the one who told him my feelings first. And he was
Let's
like,
go.
yeah, I definitely wear the pants in this relationship, let's just say.
Don't tell him that.
So he actually let me down. He let me down easy, but he said, I really am flattered and like I think you're beautiful and really cool, but I'm not dating another cheerleader. That's what he told me. He's like, I've had bad run with cheerleaders. My high school girlfriend was a cheerleader. My other, like my previous girlfriend was a cheerleader. I'm not doing it again. And I was like, okay, I respect that. Like I'll get over it. Like it's not a big deal. I wasn't heartbroken. Like we didn't really know each other that well. But then we had like study tables. I don't know if you know what study tables
Yeah.
are. Okay,
It's like
you do.
study hall.
Yeah, but for the team, like we were required
Yeah.
to go so that our grades wouldn't slip. Yeah. So at study tables, you never ended up really getting worked on there because our coach, like being the cheer team, we're not actually like an NCAA sport. So we don't really have the same like
Guidelines. Rules.
yeah, expectations of our team. So our coach was not there. So of course we would just goof off and like not actually do homework because we were all friends. So then he said he started kind of noticing that like I was always kind of just really meshed well with like our guy group of friends. Like I'm very sarcastic. I have really dark humor, like things that typical like feminine females wouldn't probably find funny. But like raunchy jokes, dark humor, yeah, like I'm all about that. So I think that's why he said he started like noticing me more
That's
because I could
dope.
just joke around with the guys and like none of his other girlfriends could do that. And then so he like started really flirting with me and then my roommate was just like, dude, you can't
Do
tell
it.
her, yeah, you can't tell her that like you just want to be friends and then do that. Like that's really like messing with her. Like you're either gonna do it or you're not. So then he was like, he reached out to me and was like, yeah, like I think I want to try or whatever. So we didn't officially start dating until after the season, but we started talking and then obviously like the rest is history. So we've had our typical, I shouldn't say typical, but we've had our own like issues in our relationship. But I think the thing that I love about him and our relationship is that and this is something that he has told me too, is like, I will never settle for like letting myself go. Like I will never let myself get so out of shape. Like obviously my weight will ebb and flow. I'll have times in my life where I'm, more lean, and times in my life where I'm not. And I'm
Kids
built
coming
like,
in the picture
yeah, like
if that's
kids
an
come in the
option.
picture. Yeah, like my body's gonna change after I give birth. Like I'm still gonna work on myself and go to the gym, but like it's never going to be exactly the same as before childbirth. So but yeah, I think that's one thing that I love about him too, is he always pushes me to do better. Like he's always coming home and is like, did you do your post for the day? What did you work on today? And not in a way of like, you're not doing enough, but like, I want to see.
He knows your potential.
Yeah. Like, and he knows that I want that. He knows that I don't want him to let me just like slide. He tells me like, I want to chill and watch a show after I get home from work. But like, if you have something you need to go do, like, I rather you go to the office and close the door. And like, yeah, maybe during the week, we don't spend as much time together. And that sucks sometimes, but like you're grinding right now, like you're building something big. And so he understands that. And that's what I think like helps our relationship work too, is like we are both people who won't let each other settle. And we always want to like push ourselves to do better.
I absolutely love that. Now this is okay. Now I'm glad you said that, because now I can segue into something else. Do you think there's an issue with women supporting men nowadays?
Women supporting men?
Like being like more supportive, or like, and vice versa. What have you seen, or what do you know of in that realm?
Okay, I'm trying to think of where I want to go with this. I can there's like a couple things that initially come to mind. And if you want to ask follow-up questions after I go over this, or if I didn't go in the direction that you were like initially thinking, let me know. I do think that now it's hard for me to like speak on supporting men because I work with a lot of women. So I see how their partners support them in their fitness journey. I have multiple clients who have amazing support systems, but I think that I work with a lot of women who are very much so like people pleasers, put everybody before themselves, like rather not make themselves a priority. So that's something that I really work on with them. But I think when it comes to support, it's like there's like a stereotype, right? Like the male is supposed to be like the breadwinner and the financially supportive, right? So it's like if you are, but that doesn't always have to be the case, but it's what I think a lot of times it's like ingrained into like the male DNA to like, if you're not making money to support, or like not making enough money to support your significant other, you feel like you're failing. You feel like you're not man enough. So it's like when it comes to that, specifically like supporting them in that way, it's like I think supporting like their growth of like understanding other ways that they can bring things to the table and make you feel safe and supported. Because if the female is the breadwinner and the male in that specific relationship, like if it's a female male relationship and that is the stereotype that male grew up with because that was what's ingrained with them from childhood, I think you almost have to accept the view of their world, but also help them grow. Like there's a way to do both. There's a way to like accept what their view of the world is now, that they are the male, they are the breadwinner, but also support them in the journey of understanding other ways that they can bring things to the relationship. So I don't know if that's the direction you wanted me to go with that, but I think that a lot of women they just want to change the guy. They don't want to accept their view of the world, but also encourage them to evolve. And I don't know, that's what I like initially came to mind for me. But I don't have like any specific examples.
No, that was actually kind of perfect, because I'll speak on this, and most people who have seen my story on Instagram or have listened to the podcast before, for my own experience, definitely I dealt with someone who wanted to change everything about me. She wanted to change. She wanted me to shave my head. She wanted me to have a dad bod. She wanted me to stop taking steroids. She wanted me to move to Kentucky or Tennessee for her. She wanted me to be okay with her modeling, to don't make gay jokes, not have black friends, etc. Just literally, just like everything you just kind of like talked about with like the woman kind of changing the man. This is like, I can really just like, this is like the prime example.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you have that.
Literally, it's been like, and I think, and I'm very, I don't know what your religious background is. I'm Jewish by heritage, but I'm now since been baptized Christian.
Okay.
And the way I kind of see it now is, you know, as the woman, you're very influential in the life of your spouse and your children, because whatever you share with your husband, be it good or bad, has a really big influence on how your marriage goes about and how your relationship between each other goes. So if you listen to Becky Sue, who's fucking bitter with her 9 cats, and you bring that into your household, and you're bringing that bitterness, I mean, obviously you're gonna bring in some sort of resentment. And I think, and I'm gonna speak on this, and you can chime in afterwards, but I think it's supposed to be a submitted partnership. I've now since become more towards a submitted partnership. You're not, one is above the other. And from what I learned in the red pill when I was speaking that nonsense, it was, you submit to me, you do what I say. If I tell you to go change your dress, you'll change your dress. If I tell you not to have guy friends, you're not gonna have guy friends. If I tell you not to go out with your girlfriends, but you're not going out with your girlfriends. It's basically just, if I tell you not going to go a girls trip, you're not gonna go. Basically just very submitted. But I'm now come more around towards, you guys are submitted to each other.
Yeah.
I submit to you in the fact that if I have something that I need to talk about, I'm submitting myself to you to let you see me and my emotions. And I'm also, and by submitting to you, if you want to go work or whatever it is, you want me to stay home with kids, I have to be cool with that. If you want to go do work and one of us and I have more time to stay home with kids, then go do that.
Yeah.
If you want to have, I mean, if whatever mutual submission looks like, you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also going to speak on the guy stuff. I used to be very insecure with the girl having guy friends. I spoke on this earlier. If you are not okay, and this is from like the guy's perspective, if you as a guy are not okay with your girl having guy friends, what does that say about you and the girl you're choosing to be with? And what does that say about you as a person? And Jason Horecki in our mentorship group, he brought this up to me. He runs for those who don't know, he runs the crypto side of our mentorship. But he mentioned it, he broached this question to me: do you not want to trust your partner 110%? Obviously, I want to be able to trust you 100%, 110%. That looks like allowing you to make the right decisions for the benefit of all relationships. If you have like guy friends and stuff, I need to be able to trust you to make the best decisions possible and not be like, oh, you can't have guy friends. That just reeks of just insecurity. And that kind of brought me back to a girl I was talking to in Austin when we were in Austin. She went to a party with a bunch of guys and I just felt very anxious. And like when girls had guy friends with me previously before this new revelation, I used to get very, very anxious. And there's a lot of relationship anxiety. I'm a very anxious attachment. That's my, I guess, attachment style is anxious attachment.
Yeah.
If you're not okay, I'm anxious. So that's where I'm going with that.
Okay. No, I think so. I wrote down actually a couple notes because I wanted to make sure there was a few things that came up for me when you were talking about that, and it was more so just like kind of what I was viewing that as and things that I've heard from the examples that you provided. So the first one is like, I believe that, and this isn't for every single woman, obviously, there's always
Absolutely.
outliers, but women's kryptonite is changing a man. Like, I don't know why, but they like, and I used to be this way too. It's like you're attracted to the bad boy, but you want to be
It's
the
the
one to
movies.
change. Yeah, it's the movie, but you want to be the one to change them. You want to be the one that makes them change their ways and makes them just like submit and fall in love and whatever. Yeah, it is I think a lot of that does come from media, kind of like you described before about like the superhero, right? Like that is our view. It's almost like, and I'm not saying that women don't like watch porn, but like it's almost like their form of like PG porn with like men's shirt
Sure.
off. And then they're seeing that as like their ideal image of like what a man should look like in their mind. So, yeah, that is the first thing that I was like, that popped into my head. I was like, that is like women's like kryptonite. Like they want to be able to change the man. And that's not always like the case. Like you shouldn't go into a relationship wanting to change somebody. You should like your core values or morals, whatever, have to align with that person. And then
Mhm.
when you learn and grow together, that's different than like you going into the relationship wanting to change them. Because at the end of the day, like you're just going to enter into a very toxic relationship.
Exactly.
And yeah, and it's just not gonna happen. Like you're just not going to change that person's like DNA and their chemical makeup. Like that's just not going to happen.
A really good way that I've gotten about this, and I got this from yet another sermon. And I mean,
Hmm.
I thank God that I was like literally these three sermons right after getting back from Tennessee
Hmm.
was literally meant for me to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm going to speak on that trip in a bit, but it's something that women need to really be cognizant of. And this comes from the background of Ephesians, I think 5:21, 24 or something. But you as the woman are meant to point to all the good things you love about him and pull out more of that great.
Yeah.
If you want to be with the man that you truly want to be with, you don't have to be okay with the mistakes. You just have to acknowledge them. Like that's not him anymore. I
Hmm.
know I know who he is as a person, and I love that person. I'm gonna pull more out. I think women nowadays, and like you said, because we talk about the grass is greener.
Hmm.
Like we all see, like, and even in the celebrity world, we see women, all these actresses jumping from man to man to man to man to man. I mean, I mean, DiCaprio's on like his fifth wife or fourth wife or whatever it is, or some actresses are on like their 10th husband. But
Hmm.
it's like you can't keep like changing guys. Guys in thousands of years have not changed. We're the same people. We are very simple.
Yeah.
Cook clean and have great sex.
Mm.
Literally, you want to make any guy's day, just have sex with him.
You were
Or
just
just like,
talking about the opposite earlier.
I'm just kidding. Flip that. I'm just kidding. No,
I mean,
but
it is part of a relationship. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like you do have to connect with somebody in that way to have a great relationship. Like, I don't know, it's part of it. It just is.
but in all seriousness, no, it's as the woman, if you're coming into a relationship, you want to pull out the best parts of him
Hmm.
and just acknowledge that yes, he made mistakes in his past.
Hmm.
And now something from the last girl, from the last woman that I was with, literally was, she literally kind of like shamed my past mistakes. Like, oh, I told her I have 50, I have a body count of like 50. And she's like, I don't like that.
Hmm.
Or whatever it is. I don't like that you were doing this. I don't like that you were doing that. It's like, your job, you want a healthy, like the most amazing relationship possible.
Hmm.
Acknowledge that yes, there are gonna be mistakes. No guy is gonna come with all your boxes checked.
Yeah.
Pick your five, pick your 10, that
Mhm.
are absolutely non-negotiable, and then work with what you got. Not saying settle,
Yeah.
just acknowledge that you're not going to get most, like, you're not going to get God in human form. No guy is that perfect,
And
but find it imperfections and love those imperfections. You're going to get the best guy. I promise you. If you do that, you're going to get the best guy possible.
yeah, like you have to be able, like if, religion, let's say like you're a super religious person, like you have to look for somebody who is also like that. If that is your top priority, like then that's what you're looking for. And there comes a point in every relationship, because everybody has flaws, and there comes a point in a relationship where the honeymoon stage is over and you are kind of like, okay, this is getting serious. Can I see this person as my future? Can I see myself marrying them? If I want to have kids, do I want to see, like, can I see having kids with them and raising those kids, right? Because do we have the same views on how we want to raise these little humans up to be a part of this world? And you have to, like, my husband has flaws, but I also have flaws. And you kind of, you have to just look at them and say, like, okay, are these flaws that I can live with forever? Because my
Exactly.
ex-boyfriend, some of the flaws in my ex-boyfriend, my high school and a college boyfriend that I dated for like 3.5 years, like it got to the point where I woke up one day and I was like, I cannot live with these forever. Like that's just, I will not be happy because I'm not happy right now. And like, I'm not going to change him. And that's okay because like, I don't want to change him, but I also like want to find somebody whose flaws that I can live with and we like embrace them. And yeah, they frustrate me to hell sometimes, but they're livable for me. Like we connect on the very important things to me, and that's what matters most. And the rest is just like you figure it out along the way. Something that my pastor said, the pastor who married us in our premarital counseling,
Mm-hmm.
um, told me that a third of the time, you're gonna feel so in love with your partner. A third of the time, you are not going to like your partner. And a third of the time, you're going to just like feel like you like them and you're living with them and you're kind of just like it is what it is,
Stuck.
skating
Stuck.
through life. Yeah. And that is so true. And that's where the act of love comes in, the verb. Like love is a verb, to love somebody. And that's where that comes in, is like during those times where you're like, I feel like I just don't really like my partner right now, the like your own personal insecurities and issues are going to come out, and you're going to be like thinking like, oh, was this the right person to marry? Was this the right relationship to get into forever? Like I feel stuck, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a phase. Like think about how much your life ebbs and flows in other ways, not just your relationship, but like life ebbs and flows a lot. And it's the same thing. Like it's not going to be different in a relationship. So you just have to decide to continue to love that person and choose them every single day, even if it's days that you don't like them, or maybe you're in an argument and you don't agree with something that they did, or they really did something to hurt you. Like we're all human. They're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to do something to hurt you at some point or another. And this kind of brings me to the conversation, something on the last time you spoke where I had a couple notes written down, is the subject of boundaries versus control. So it's important. And like you said, you have to find a relationship where both of you agree on like how you are going to like submit to each other, right? It's not one more powerful over the other. It's we are in this partnership together, and I'm going to respect the things that you're uncomfortable with, and I'm going to, work around those because they make you feel uncomfortable and I want to make you feel comfortable. So for instance, something that me and my husband have come to an agreement together on, it's not one of us trying to control the other or have power over the other. It's that we decided that we find it inappropriate for our relationship for either him or I to be alone with the opposite sex in the car, in a, I don't know, facility, like wherever it may be, just in a place with the opposite sex, just us and somebody else. And that is something that we agreed upon. It's not unhealthy because it is an agreed upon boundary that we have set for our relationship. It's not him saying, I don't want you hanging out with other guys, but I would not be, at a bar alone drinking with a guy, being a married woman. That is what we've decided in our relationship. He will not be alone. He had like a coworker ask him to carpool because she lives in a town close by. And I've never met this female. So like, it's not that I don't trust him, and it's not that I'm trying to take power over him. When he approached me with it, he didn't just do it. He approached me and said, hey, like, this coworker of mine approached me and she thought like maybe it'd be a good idea to save gas or whatever because they have to drive all the way in the cities. And I just said, I fully trust you, but like I'm just not comfortable with that because I don't know her. Like I've never met her. It's not like one of our best friends who we like cheered with. Like I feel comfortable with that. But it's like, don't put yourself in that position if it makes your partner feel uncomfortable and you've had an open discussion about it. But it's also important to have open communication, and something that my husband and I learned a couple years ago that has really changed the game of our relationship is saying what you need to say, regardless if it's going to hurt the person in the moment and bring up an uncomfortable conversation. Because if you just brush by like, oh, I don't want to upset my partner, like, and you're not really like, you're holding back in some way on what you need to say in terms of what makes you feel uncomfortable or how you feel about something because you don't want to hurt them in the moment, it's just going to build up and it's going to result in even further issues in the relationship than just bringing them up and saying what you need to say, even if it hurts them in the moment or like makes them feel uncomfortable. But if it's really bothering you, like it's just going to fester and build and later on explode, or you're going to end up in resentment. And that ties in with the boundaries. It's like you need to set those boundaries and discuss what you're uncomfortable with and why you're uncomfortable, and not have it come from a place of power and control, but a place of like what you're
Love and acceptance.
yeah, love. And like, if you love me, like this makes me feel uncomfortable. Like we need to figure out a way to like make it so we're on an understanding. We're on the same page about it.
Same shit in music. It really just, I'll make this very clear. It all comes down to communication. It all comes down to the parameters that you want to set in your relationship. If you're comfortable with your husband or your wife being in the car alone with some random person, more power to you.
That's your
You are
relationship. Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
It's all going to vary from person to person. Not one set of rules is going to fit the same couple.
Mhm.
It depends on how much you trust each other, how much you don't trust each other, whatever issues you probably have unresolved that you got married to this person and didn't figure out.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot. I had a really big good thought in my head and completely just anyway.
Can I say one thing? Oh, did you think of it? Say it. Say it if you thought of it.
It was yes. Do you think that women need to be more communicative? Because there's a very big difference between, because a lot of women don't communicate what exactly they want. Guys are in their masculine. So to put this in the context,
Yeah.
we all know we're made out of feminine and masculine and feminine energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Men tend to be more on their masculine, women tend to be more on their feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Masculine is logic and reason. Yes or no, I hear you, got it. Women are, oh, what do you mean you don't want to do this? What do you mean no? Does he love me? What do you mean I know? Does he still love me? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that women need to learn how to communicate better so the guy doesn't just hear, okay, got it. I hear logic and reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. And then we don't do what the woman actually wants.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets pissed at us because it's like, I told you to do it. It's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
What do you mean you told me to do it?
Yeah. I think so. I'm going to answer this in kind of different words, but I think you're going to understand what I mean when I'm explaining it. So, and this is something that I'm an overthinker. I was always like the big romantic, I need grand gestures. And when I wasn't given that, I thought there was something wrong and like the person didn't love me, whatever it may be. So, and I was never good at communicating.
That's where I wanted to go. Overthinking, because
Okay.
you just said it.
Yes. Yeah. I was very passive aggressive with my way of communicating previously, up until we had that revelation that I spoke about how we just decided like, we just need to say like, and this is something that my husband and I agreed upon. Like, we just need to say what we need, because if we're being passive aggressive about this, like we're never going to get anywhere. And that's the thing is like a lot of women, and again, there's always going to be outliers, but a lot of women do things passive aggressively. And something that I've learned and I've actively worked on resolving is acting from a place of emotion. which women do a lot. And so it's not that they are not communicating, it is the way that they're communicating. So if you are acting out of emotion, and this goes, and I've seen this relate to my business too. If I post something or launch something and it doesn't get a lot of engagement, flashback 2 years ago, that would have ruined my whole week. I wouldn't have taken any more action that week. I would have been all like down in the dumps, woe is me, acting out of emotion because that upset me. That made me butthurt. It made me spiral into overthinking, and I just wouldn't, like, it would affect my actions. And now I've really tried to act out of a more like, I mean, I guess how you described it before, more of like a masculine point of view when it comes to how I respond to things. Like, instead of acting out of emotion, I will logically say like, okay, this does not always equal this. So even if this happened, that doesn't mean that the next time I do something, it's going to be responded to the same way. So I'm still going to continue by taking action. And I think that goes the same way with like when women communicate. If we are hurt, and I think I've seen men act out of action, or sorry, out of emotion too.
For sure.
More so maybe heightened anger and more of more like of a defense, whereas women are more out of like petty and passive aggressive. That's just kind of like the general overall what I've kind of observed. So I think overall, like learning how to learning how to communicate out of reason and trying to do it from a productive standpoint rather than acting out of your emotion in the moment. Because we all say things we don't mean when it's coming from emotion. And that is what really triggers an even worse and more like monumental fight or negative outcome in any, I mean, emotion can take any small argument into a massive explosive fight. And so just learning to say like learning what you need in the moment too. Like, are you the type of person, like I'm the type of person where if I'm hurt, I shut down and I need some time to just sit in my feels and then I can talk about it. Whereas my husband, he wants to talk about it and resolve it right now. And so when I shut down, that upsets him because he wants to resolve it and settle, more of like that masculine. He wants to logically talk about it. And I cannot logically talk about things when I'm in emotion. So I've had to learn to tell him, like, I want to talk about this and resolve this. We try to do it before bed because they say like you shouldn't go to bed angry. And I agree, but also you shouldn't wake up angry, right? Like you shouldn't carry things to the next day. So I just tell him like, I need a minute. Like I'm upset and I don't want to say things. Like I know this conversation won't be productive because I'll be speaking out of emotion. And so just like learning what you need, because everybody is different, especially if you are opposite sex relationship, like you are probably going to go about things differently. And you need to discuss with your partner what you need in that moment. And if that is, I need to take a walk around the block real quick just to cool off, and then we can have a conversation, then that is what it is. And just be respectful of how that person needs to handle things in the moment, as long as you can do it in a mature way that's not screaming and coming, from emotion or being passive aggressive.
Sometimes that's how it goes. Sometimes that's the relationship.
Yeah, you can't always, and it's not going to be perfect. It's definitely a practice. But I think about the time where my ex-boyfriend, my high school boyfriend, he went to go see this movie that I really wanted to see, that I thought we had discussed on going to see together. He went with his friends and I got really mad, and I texted him the entire movie nonstop, like rage text. Think about like, you probably haven't seen it, but like maybe some of your listeners have seen like Vanderpump Rules where I haven't seen that. Okay. That's like my Roman Empire. But anyways, one of the girls like rage texts her boyfriend like nonstop where the bubble won't stop. That was me. I was like, I hope you're enjoying the movie. I hope it's the best movie you've ever seen, So that used to be me, right? That used to be me because I was acting out of emotion, passive aggressive, petty, and that was not productive. That didn't get me anywhere. So just kind of learning like what you need and what your partner needs, and like talking about how to productively get through issues together in a way that will be like a good compromise between like what you need and what they need.
It's like learning your communication style. So like some
Yes.
people are just very like direct.
Yes.
Like, hey, you fucked up. Go fucking fix it.
Yeah.
Some people are like, hey, like on the way you said that, can you like not say it again?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very and if the other person doesn't understand what your communication style is, then you can interpret their communication style as rude or like if you're
Condescending.
yeah, like condescending and like it could just add fuel to the fire too. So that's why, like you said, communication is key and talking about like what you need. But I do think that as a whole, and this is speaking from personal experience, the women act out of and talk out of emotion like we do. We're emotional beings, and maybe that's part of the feminine of us. But some are obviously worse than others. It's a gradient, it's a spectrum. So you're gonna find some of us on any part of the spectrum of that.
Absolutely.
Mm.
All right. I think this is a really good stopping point for right now. We're
Yeah.
not going to put things up into 2 or 3 parts. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
So,
Awesome.
and then where can people find you?
So people can find me on Instagram. My fitness coaching page is at pretty powerhouse _cc. So that's, pretty at pretty powerhouse _cc. And then my personal account is at Katy Goeltz. If you can't find the pretty powerhouse, you can find my coaching through my personal.
All right, well, you heard it here first. If you can't figure out pretty powerhouse, then I don't really know how. There's no hope for you. I'm sorry.
Do you have show notes? Can you type it in your show notes? I don't know if you can type it out or in like the description. Like when you post
when
the
we do,
podcast.
when I post it, I'll put it in. When I post the when I post it, I'll put it in the description, and then I'll also like
Perfect.
drop it on
Yeah.
Instagram and all that.
We'll figure it out. And I post sometimes clips of podcast episodes. So like I'll tag you in it or add you as like a collaborator.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Yeah, we can do it that way
Sounds
too.
dope. And then ladies, if you want to lose your first 30 pounds, you know where to go. There is literally no excuse to not unfuck yourself.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
rude as that sounds.
Yeah, you have it right there. Yeah, unfuck yourself. Thank you so much for having me. I actually really enjoyed
Sure. This
this
was really fun.
conversation. Yeah, it was actually really
It was
fun.
totally off the cuff.
Yeah, it was. And I love that style, honestly. So it was great.
Not scripted. Off
Not
the dome.
scripted. Off
High
the
as
dome.
hell.
Yes. All right.
All right. We'll talk soon to get this up another day.
Yes.
Hopefully my technological issues are fucking figured out.
You know what? We're both technologically not advanced.
Inept.
We're like dinosaurs. Yeah. Yeah. I could not figure out what was happening. So
I think Nick responded, so I'm gonna see what he says. And I was like, look, it worked on my phone. I don't know what's going on.
okay. Yeah, I'll stop the recording. Is that cool?
Yeah, go ahead.